from the Spirit with glorious light. Confident living cleanses my soul, giving the Spirit fullest control.
I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to talk to you in the next few minutes about the spiritual value of volunteering. One of the greatest spiritual values in volunteering is the peace that it brings to us, and we can volunteer through the way that we operate in our minds. We believe that we live in our minds and not in the world. That means that circumstances and situations take place. But what happens inside us, in our minds, the way that we think about the things that are happening in life is truly the life that we live. It is truly the connectiveness that we have with being. In today's environment, in this world that we have, it seems that we have so many needs. In our small community church, we always have needs. We have needs that are financial. We have needs for people. We reach out so often and we touch other people through our life and our ministry in our small circle. But this entire world, our community, our cities, our state, and our nation are filled with organizations that do so much good. No matter what it is that you have an interest in, whether it's religious or whether it is healthcare related, whether it's community minded or social minded, there are organizations where you can volunteer, give of your time. And the volunteering aspect of life begins with a change in the way that we think. And as we think about our lives and as our thought process and the dynamic of our mind begins to reach out to others, we begin to come to an understanding and a realization that we need to volunteer. We're all volunteers anyway when it comes right down to it in this life. We have come into this life experience, and we are here to be submitted to those experiences that come to us. We teach that life is a school of the soul, and that each of the experiences that we have, each day of our lives, my life and your life, are lessons that we need to learn for our spiritual growth and unfolding. But as we have and make this spiritual journey of our existence, we do it in a physical world. We do it in this outer physical world. We go to work, we have families, we have homes, we have obligations, we touch other people. And as that happens, our physical lives are connected to our spiritual lives. And as we volunteer or give of ourselves on a voluntary basis, we make a wonderful and magnificent connection with all of life, and we submit to the spiritual lessons that we have to learn. Wherever you go in life, you are in the process of learning. Whatever you experience in life is bringing into your physical being and your spiritual being lessons that need to be learned. So life, when it is lived, both in the physical, in the mental, and in the spiritual, brings us true and wonderful rewards. If the needs of this world are to be met, they must be met by us. Obviously, it isn't possible for each of us to take on the burdens of the world, but we can certainly take on the burdens, the challenges, or the blessings, if you will, of the needs of those who are around us in our immediate area. If we had time to give, and we do, and if we all gave of the time that we had graciously and freely, we would be able to meet all of the physical needs and all of the spiritual needs that we have and that the world has in a physical sense. I would like to submit to you that volunteering for something, giving of your time, is one of the most magnificent spiritual gifts that you can give, and it will pay you magnificent and tremendous dividends. It also is a gift that you can give to your mind, to your way of thinking, and it can bring you into a better understanding of where you are in your life experience. And so I would like to invite you to consider connecting your life with something worthy that you would like to give of your time, your talent, and your effort, and begin the process of giving some volunteer service to your community. It could be in a school, it could be in a hospital, it could be in a social club. There are all kinds of places where you can give of yourself. Volunteering is good for our health Because when we volunteer, we freely give of our time. It may even be a few moments a week, it may be a few hours a week, but when we do this, we move out of our own life, out of our own experience, out of our own needs, and we connect with the needs of others. When we do that, we begin to build within ourselves a tremendous resource of peace. When are we most at peace? We are at peace when we're able to step out of the conflict in life, when we're able to step out of the difficult times in life, when we're able to remove our thoughts from where we believe ourselves to be to someplace else. And what better place than to move ourselves physically and mentally into a totally new environment where we're doing something for others and where we're giving of ourselves freely. As we volunteer, and again, whatever the volunteer time is spent doing isn't important, but the aspect of getting out of our own environment, our own home and work and family and friends, circle of friends, and putting our problems in perspective by being in the midst of another need, circling ourselves, encircling ourselves with other people creates for us the ability to have new perspective about our own lives and about our own problems. And sometimes the problems that we believe to be so important and so damaging become less important and less damaging when we're able to put them in perspective by seeing the needs of others and by seeing ourselves, giving of ourselves and connecting with some other need. We can all make a difference. And certainly in our lives, we want desperately to make a difference. Every one of us as young people began idealistically saying that we were going to change the world, we were going to change something. And then as we go on through the process of life, it seems that we get so busy with our daily lives, we get so buried by the responsibilities of life that sooner or later we come to a feeling within ourselves that we're really not making any difference. And part of that problem is that we want to make a big difference. And a big difference for us is something like solving the problem of world peace or solving the problem of world hunger. But we can't do that as individuals. But what we can do as individuals is connect with a small and individual problem or a need. And when we connect with that need, when we volunteer and give of ourselves, of our time, we can make a difference. And we can begin to see that we are making a difference. It's very difficult to see that we're making a difference when we simply go to work every day. It's very difficult to see that we're making a difference when we simply deal with the problems and challenges of our family. In those environments, we can and do make a difference, but we lose focus of that because we are so often in our workplace and in our family environment. But by taking ourselves physically out of that setting, out of those obligations, and into another setting where there is a need, where we're doing something completely different and giving of our time, then we can see things differently. As we involve ourselves in voluntary service, again, anywhere, doesn't have to be in church, we involve ourselves in voluntary giving in an organization of need, we gain new insights because by simply being there, we interact and connect with other people. We have different and new experiences, and we build upon our life experience in ways that we never would have imagined. We touch others in two ways. We touch others because as we volunteer and give to an organization in need of our time, of our talent, and of our effort, we are meeting the needs of that organization which are touching others, but we are also touching others by the very act of being there because we are touching the other volunteers and coming to know other people. It's a very important aspect of giving of ourselves. As we volunteer our time and give to a need with our resources of time and effort, we discover strengths that we never knew that we had. We're able to look to new areas that we wouldn't have experienced in our workplace and we wouldn't have experienced in our family. We make a new world because we live in several worlds. We live in the physical world, we believe, but we say that we live in our mind. We don't live in the world, we live in our mind. But we have so many worlds that we can touch, so many circles that we can come in contact with. And in other instances, we would never have come in contact with these people. And so as we make and touch a new world, dynamic and wonderful things can happen. If you have never been a volunteer, I invite you to consider being a volunteer in your church, in your social club, at a local hospital, at a point of need. If you haven't done that, you have shortchanged yourself and you have shortchanged society. And a fundamental Christian teaching and a fundamental of New Thought is that we are obligated to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. And so in order to do that, we need to volunteer, we need to connect, and we need to meet a need. It's good for your health. It'll bring you peace. It'll help you to put your problems in a new perspective, help you to make a difference, and it'll give you insights and experiences that you've never imagined. And you'll be able to touch new and wonderful worlds. So I invite you to open yourself to the experience of volunteering, and as you do, new doors and worlds will open to you. We'd like to pause at this point in the program to invite you to join with us in a reflection. We believe that prayer and meditation are centering forces, that they connect us to the divine power of God. So we'd like to invite you now to pause with us for this reflection. Eternal God, we open our hearts and minds to your divine presence, and we ask that you would guide us and direct us in ways of giving of ourself, our time and talent, to great needs, to lesser needs, and to any need where we can reach out and touch other people. Because in touching other people, we connect ourselves with your divine presence, with your light and life. We know these things in the name of faith, in the name of hope, in the name of love. Amen.
Well, you certainly could speak from experience there, Dr. Costello, because you donate your time to the church so beautifully. I don't know very many ministers, I don't know any other ministers, well, very few, who give their time at their churches as opposed to being on salary.
Well, the church to me has always been a part of my life, and in growing up, I was taught, right or wrong, and I've always embraced the concept that the church is not a place to make a living. And if those who are called into the ministry should make, or should if they choose, I'm not subscribing to this for everyone, but in my case and in many others, I think they would benefit from the fact that if they make their living outside of the church, they really open themselves to a lot of experiences that clergy don't have. So many clergymen who spend their life in the church, being supported by the church and making their living from the church, don't have a true and deep understanding of what it takes to make a living. And also, it is a gift to the church, because if you free the church from the salary of a clergy, and certainly of a pastor's salary, then there is a major expense that can be spent otherwise, and it also requires that other people participate, and that we have full participation.
Yes, and then I know in your church, although it's small, you gave I'm very proud to be an associate minister at your church, 32 baskets to the needy this Christmas, and that was a wonderful thing, and it was marvelous seeing those people come in there and be so happy taking those huge boxes of food. That was 32 families that were very well nourished for a full week.
The volunteerism is so important. You've been a volunteer for many years in many different things. Why do you do it?
Well, I do it because I can sit back and eat chocolates and read all I like and not feel guilty. I said that to a friend once, and she thought I really meant it. In a sense, I did. I have a private, my life is somewhat private, and I like being alone. I like reading, and I like just being. And now that I'm older, I have the opportunity to do that. For many years, I was raising a family, and working before that. And now that I have the opportunity to just sit, I often do. But I've always, as you said, been active in the community. And it gives me a very good sense of self-worth. That's an important part. And also of contributing in the community. For example, right now I'm very active in the Assistance League, and we help in so many ways that most people don't even realize what all we do. In our thrift shop last year, we made $163,000, and all the money goes toward the charities that we support. The orthodontic clinic helps the children whose parents can't afford their orthodontia work, and that's such a wonderful thing. And then we feed the soul as well as the body, and we have those beautiful art objects down at the League House, and the children come through, the teachers bring them in groups, and they're shown the artwork, and it's explained to them, and that's a wonderful aspect of their lives. And last year, my job in relation to the Howard collection, which we have, the Oriental Art Collection, was helping to keep it clean. So 4 times a year, our committee would go down and clean that. And it's a good feeling to be able to do any small thing that is part of the whole. And we have many other aspects in the community that we do. We have the puppets, and at a hospital we have helping the children on the wards. But in all, it's just a very wonderful way of reaching out in the community. And then we're nurtured too, and we nurture each other. Today, for example, is odd you would have that for your subject today, because this morning I was treated to breakfast with all the other March birthday members at the home of the current president. And that was a wonderfully generous thing she did. So we not only try to help in the community at large, but we help each other.
That's the being touched twice.
That's right.
We're touched by the people we come in contact with, whom we would never come in contact with otherwise, and we're touched by the needs that are met.
That's right. And Barbara Newton is a wonderful president. She helps us to reach out to the community, then she helps us reach out to each other. And then the incoming president today sent me a bouquet because I'm going to be on her board next year, and that was delivered to my home. So I know how the people feel when they really need these things, because it's so nurturing to receive these special gifts.
And that nurturing aspect is a very fundamental part of what volunteering is all about, because we become nurtured. So often I think we believe that the government should take care of us, the government should take care of the needy. And in truth, I think that if there was a spirit of volunteerism, which I think is fundamentally a Judeo-Christian teaching, it is a teaching certainly of New Thought, of all religious movements around the world, if we would take that to heart and volunteer and give, not only of our money, in some cases that's the easiest, but of our time, and so much time is wasted in human life. Exactly. And if we could just take that wasted time, take 30 minutes or an hour from television watching and give it to a hospital or to a social club or to your church, a lot of wonderful things could be accomplished, and a lot of lives could be touched in a wonderful way.
Yes, well, speaking personally again, it's very rewarding to me to be a part of the ministry at Christ Church, because we're reaching out to people who want us to reach out to them in such a wonderfully viable way. And through the years, I've been a part of other groups, like the Long Beach Youth Home is for boys who are 13 to 18 years of age. They're not hardcore offenders, and most of them have come from homes that are tragic. And so those boys need a lift. And I helped for them. I was the founding member for the boosters for that group. And it was a wonderfully rewarding thing to be able to help those boys in that way. And then there's Sandlarks for the Children's Home Society for adoption of children, and Cedar House for the children who are abused for their family. And those are just a few that I happen to have been active in, but there are so many. And as you pointed out in your talk, there's something for everyone. And we should all just look to see what we really want to do, and then it's a labor of love, because we're doing what we want to do.
And you also were a volunteer chaplain for a long time.
That's right, over at Community Hospital. I did that, and it was very rewarding, and I had such marvelous experiences, deep spiritual experiences. There was an older lady who wanted to die and asked me to pray with her and that she die, and I said, well, you pray first, and then I'll pray that you die. And she died that night at 7 o'clock. And it was so wonderfully rewarding to know that she was able to release herself in that fashion. And then I was a hospice volunteer for 10 years, and that's very rewarding too. And it's good to be able to help people go out without fear. And I think as a minister and with my own background, I was able to help those patients end their lives in a very comfortable way.
And you, like me, have spent time at work where you have been paid for your time, and also voluntary time. And I think all of your time in the ministry has been voluntary.
That's right. I've never taken any money for my work.
And in not taking money, but in volunteering, I think there's so much of a great gift that we feel from within, from deep within. And it doesn't have to do, it happens in our cases that we happen to be ministers, and that we happen to give in a voluntary way of our time in other areas, but everyone could do it and should do it. And if everyone did it, it would certainly be a much different world than the one that we know.
That's so very true. But did you know that in this country, more people volunteer than in any other country in the world? And people who come here to this country to live are just amazed at the amount of volunteerism in our country. And I think that says something very beautiful for the United States of America.
Do you think that we could do more?
Well, indeed, we could all do more, and more people could volunteer, like those of us who do volunteer to a very great extent. Well, many could do half as much and still, and there would be more there. There's a young woman, I was very touched at my dentist's office recently. A young woman said she would like to get involved in something, and she works full time, and she has a child, and she's a single parent, and she has other responsibilities, and yet she wants to volunteer in the community, and she will. She's going to. And that's so rewarding to see, and she will be rewarded more than anyone else, but she knows that. But the people who don't volunteer don't. And I'm sure you are very aware that the people who are so lonely don't volunteer.
People who are lonely don't volunteer when they could be out and giving of themselves and
Yes.
benefiting from it. And I think also people of limited resources sometimes feel that they're not the volunteer type.
Not able to. But then there's always something for everyone to do. That there's so many needy ways that we can expend our time and energy, and we just have to look for that one.
When you choose to volunteer, how is it that you find an organization?
Well, usually my friends coerce me into it. Actually, that's been true. When I formed the Long Beach Youth Home Boosters Group, a couple invited me to their Kiwanis Valentine luncheon, just so I would meet two young men who were counselors at that facility, the Long Beach Youth Home. And so I attended the luncheon and met them, and then they invited me to come down and see how they were running the place. And they hinted that it would be nice if I could help them in some way, because I'd been president of San Larks and of the Cedar House, and they knew that I had volunteered in other things. So I went down and they spent 3 hours showing me their books and talking about it. And I could see, well, this need is here. And so I invited my friends to my home to form the group. And it just formed itself. And I wasn't even an officer that first year, because I wanted as many people to, like you always teach so beautifully, that get people involved and it will move, the activity will move. And so I just wanted other people to be officers, because I knew I would support the group. And then it did get going. And then with the Assistance League, different friends kept inviting me to, hinting they'd like me to join, or asking me outright to join. So usually that's the way. But I know some people who are enterprising enough just to decide they'd like to do that specific work, volunteerism, and then they do it. And that's very wonderful too.
Well, you did that in the hospice area when someone approached you about writing a book at one time, and you were
Yes.
going to set up a hospice group. And you'd been a hospice
That's right.
volunteer for a long time.
That's right. We helped form the Hospice Development Foundation. And then I wasn't able to stay in Long Beach. I had to be out of Long Beach for a year because of the illness of my father, and I was gone. But I also became disillusioned with that. And then I dropped my interest, because I became disillusioned with the aspect of that, because so many people were looking. For example, they would say, well, there's lots of money to be made with AIDS. There's lots of money to be made from cancer. Well, that's a terrible thing. And I wouldn't want to be a part of any group that thinks there's a lot of money to be made from illness. It just isn't a good feeling.
So then you decide to put your efforts elsewhere, and you move
Yes.
on.
Well, that's right. We had our charter, or the nonprofit foundation. We had paid $900 to get the nonprofit status. So we gave that to an AIDS hospice, and they were able to use it in a very viable way. So it wasn't wasted. And then we went on to doing other things. Those people who were helping me and working in that group, and I know you attended the meetings, some of them, and you were going to be helping if we continued. But it didn't work out. And so there's many other ways we can put our energies in, and we do.
And part of that, and part of what you're expressing, is that that volunteering is not either a Pandora's box, or is it something that is always happy
That's right.
and amiable, and that there is conflict, and that sometimes we find a time when we don't want to be a part of an organization, or we need to move on to other areas. And so often people believe about nonprofit organizations that somehow they're going to be different than other organizations, but people are people, and we
That's
have to
right.
be willing to accept that.
I have a personal theory that I've seen proven true to me many times, that we need to move on. We don't need to stay with any organization forever, because it's when it's a large group that's freestanding, like those that I've mentioned. Now, I think in a church it's a different situation entirely, but because we're giving in a different way. But when we're having fundraisers, and that's how we make our money and for that organization, and the money is spent for specific ways, then the people get too set in their ways. And I've seen that happen. They stymie the growth of the organization because they're holding back too much. They need new people to come in, take over, and get things moving. And I've seen it happen. I've been in one organization 40 years, and I've been just an associate member of that organization for the last many years, because it's my theory that we just need to stay active for a time when we can be very viable, and then let other people take over. And we can have some kind of membership, but it wouldn't be active.
And it's important to let others have their time.
That's
and
right.
to give up the idea that our ideas are the only ideas.
That's right. And we can go into other organizations, and then our ideas are fresh, and we're needed there.
That's right. So all of life is exciting, and volunteerism is a major part of life, spiritual life and human life. And as we connect the humanness to our spiritual dimension, we become volunteers for life. And we hope that you'll give some thought to the ideas and thoughts we've shared with you. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Power helps me be strong. Confident living comforts my heart. From such a blessing I can't depart. Confident living helps me expand visions of value, the kingdom at hand. Confident living, talent to win, gift of the Spirit moves from within. Confident living rights every wrong. Dynamic power helps me be strong. Confident living comforts my heart from such a